This slideshow is about urban life in New York City in 1911. On March 25th, 1911, 146 people died in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. In this lesson, you will learn what their lives were like before the fire that killed them. Immigration to the United States. People don't just randomly decide to move out of the country that they currently live in. Something bad always has to push them out. Some push factors are no jobs, no food, being punished for your religious beliefs, or not having any political freedom. Once a person or a family decide to move out of their country, they have to find someplace new to live. Something will pull them into a new country. Some pull factors are lots of jobs, plenty of food, religious freedom, and political freedom. These pull factors will always solve the push factor. For example, Italians were pushed out of Italy because there were very few jobs. They would move and immigrate to the United States because there were plenty of jobs for poor people here. Another example were Jewish people from Russia and Poland. They would leave or be pushed out of their home countries because they had no religious freedom. And they would be pulled into the United States because here we do have religious freedom. Diversity simply means differences, any kind of differences. Differences in skin color, the type of clothes you wear, the food you eat, anything that's different is diversity. Ethnic means where your family originally comes from. They share the same culture, language, and traditions of other people that come from that same area. Religious diversity. Religious diversity are the differences between religions. Religiously, the new immigrants were very different from the old immigrant Americans that had come from England and Scotland, and they practiced the Protestant religion. Many of the new immigrants were Roman Catholic, which is similar to the Protestant religion, but different in a very important way. Roman Catholics still believe that the Pope is God's messenger on earth, and the Protestants do not. Roman Catholics also go to church on Sunday. Jesus is a very important individual in that religion. Their symbol is the cross. They had no real special clothing, and most of the Italians and the Irish and Southern Germans that were coming in as immigrants were Roman Catholic. Jews were a very, very different religious group that were coming in as immigrants during this time. They did not go to church on Sunday, they went to synagogue on Saturday. Jesus was not a very important person for them. Their symbol is the Star of David, which you see on the top right-hand side of this slide. The men will wear prayer shawls and yarmulkes and have very long beards to show their wisdom. So it was very easy to see a Jewish man walking down a crowded street in New York City in 1911. Ethnic diversity. Ethnic diversity are the differences between the different ethnic groups or different nationalities of people coming in as immigrants to the United States in 1911. For example, the Italians that were coming in were very different than the Jewish Russians that were coming in at the same time. In the Italian immigrant families, the men always dominated the family and made all of the important decisions. The Italians in general did not get involved with American politics. The Italians had come to America for jobs, and they were just looking to get their money and maybe even go back to Italy. They were not interested in staying and changing the political scene in America. Russian Jews, on the other hand, were very absorbed in their religious studies. So women very often in the family would make all of the important decisions because the men were completely out of it studying the Talmud. Jewish women and men were also far more involved in politics. They had come to America for religious freedom and did not plan on going back to Russia, so it was fairly important for them to make it here in America and create a life that they could live with for the rest of their lives. So politics was very important to them. Use the information from this slide and the last slide to fill in the chart at the bottom of your page comparing the religious and ethnic diversity between the Italian and Jewish immigrants. I have mentioned 7 differences. You need to record at least 6 on the chart. Thank you. These 2 movies are made with Thomas Edison's kinetoscope. Never before could people actually see the busy streets of New York City or ride a subway unless they were really there. Notice the horse cars and horse-drawn wagons that filled Broadway. Imagine how that smelled in the summertime. Look at the crowded sidewalks. No wonder the subway was so popular. The women that you see are all wearing the popular shirtwaist style blouse made in hundreds of factories in New York City, like the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. While Thomas Edison invented both the kinetoscope movie camera and the phonograph, the 2 inventions were not blended into a sound movie projector until 1927. So the movies that you are watching are all silent. In this picture by Lewis Hines, you see one room of a dumbbell tenement apartment. There would be 3 rooms with 400 total square feet in one of these apartments. There was an air shaft in the middle of the building to let air and light in, but most of these air shafts were filled in with garbage because there were no garbage pickups at that time, so the people had to get rid of their garbage the best way that they could. And many of these poor families would just throw it into the air shaft. So the air shaft filled up with people's garbage for years and years and years. Oh, the smell in the summertime. The kitchens had a gas-operated kitchen stove, which meant that you had to put money into the gas machine to actually cook your food, or else the stove would not work. There were no bathrooms in these apartments. Each floor had 4 apartments, and there were 2 bathrooms to share between the 4 apartments. The bathrooms were really just a toilet, no sink, no bathtub. So again, imagine the smells. Very bad. This is slide 9. Look at the photo of the apartment building at the bottom left side of your note sheet. You need to answer the question, how many families lived in this building? To do this, you're going to have to use math. Count the number of windows on one floor, then multiply that number by the total number of floors. This will give you the total number of windows. Knowing that, you should be able to figure the rest out. Because each family's apartment had 2 windows. You should from now be able to figure out how many apartments are on this side of the building. Then what you need to do is to take the number of families on this one side of the building and multiply that by 2 so you can get to account for all of the families on the other side of the building also. Now with the number of families in this one building, keep in mind that this is one building. There were over 100,000 other buildings in New York City just like this. The amount of people crammed on top of one another was amazing. 800 people per acre. That's a lot of people. This is the floor plan of a dumbbell tenement. It was shaped like a dumbbell. It got narrow in the middle to create an air shaft, but this air shaft would become filled with garbage, and people on the first, second, and third floor would have to board up their windows because literally the garbage was falling inside their windows. This is just one floor of a multi-floor building. It shows the 4 apartments and the 2 bathrooms. They are labeled WC. That stands for water closet. There was just a toilet in there. No sink, no shower, no tub, nothing. Just the seat. Each apartment had 1 bedroom that would be converted into a kitchen with a coin-operated gas stove and a sink. Half of the apartments on the floor would not have any bedroom whatsoever because of this. Most apartments had so many people living in them that the people had to sleep on sofas and floors and even on top of the stove. The Tenement Museum in New York City. If you get a chance to do this and go to this museum, it is great. You go through a dark, dirty hallway to see the tiny bathroom that all the immigrants would have to have used. Then you go inside an apartment that would have an actor playing the part of an immigrant from the 1890s to the 1900s. You can ask them questions about their life, their family, their jobs, their traditions, anything at all, and they will always answer as if they are really that immigrant. It's really very well done. I went in 2009, and it was wonderful. If you get a chance, definitely make your way to the Tenement Museum on 97 Orchard Street in New York City. You will not be disappointed. Even though it's a museum, it's okay. It'll be fun. This museum has an interactive website that you will be using for several web quests that you will need to complete for this class. A vast majority of the workers at the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory were very young immigrants. They were poor teenagers who, just like you, wanted to go out and do something fun. You wouldn't want to sit around in that cramped, stinky apartment either, would you? Here are some things that they would do. Sometimes they would go to something called a penny arcade, which was a business that had entertainment games that people could play for a penny. Kind of like a video arcade now, which is kind of like what your Xbox would be, but if you had to go outside your house and pay to play it. Nickelodeons were also something that they would do. And a Nickelodeon would show you films which were typically 10 or 15 minutes long, and had a variety of styles and different subjects. There's an example here of Annie Oakley shooting her guns and doing some trick shots. This was shot in Thomas Edison's studio using his kinetoscope. It is a soundless movie, as all movies were back then. More recreation. Dances. These would be just like school dances, except playing ragtime music, like what you've been listening to throughout the background of this whole slideshow. And if you don't like that, just think that someday, 100 years from now, Nicki Minaj and Of Mice and Men, they'll be on the classical music station, and middle schoolers will be making fun of them too. Going to lectures, like a teacher standing in front of a room talking at you, were also enjoyable. When you can't go to school because you work all day long, sometimes learning can be fun. And finally, English classes were something that young people did too, because learning the English language can get you a better job, and that can make you a lot more money. Those were all things that people did for recreation. This is the last slide in the show. What I need you to do is to review your notes from this lesson, and at the bottom of the page, answer the question. 146 people died in the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. What were their lives like before the fire that killed them? Think about, how did they live? What did they like to do? What were some good things in their life, and maybe what were some bad things in their life? And I need you to write that down on the bottom of the note sheet where it says the question. Thank you.